What happens when a governor spends over $20 billion on a crisis and then declares victory while families are still stepping over tents on their way to work? I'm Andrew R. Coleman, and welcome to the Andrew R. Coleman channel. Before we get into this investigation, I need you to do something right now. Hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell, and drop a comment below with your honest reaction. Share this video with anyone who's tired of being handed press releases instead of answers. Because what I'm about to show you isn't just about homelessness statistics, it's about whether you can trust the numbers your government gives you. California just announced what officials are calling a historic breakthrough, a 9% drop in unsheltered homelessness, the largest reduction in over 15 years. Governor Gavin Newsom is taking a victory lap. Headlines are celebrating, the narrative is set. But here's the thing, when billions of dollars are spent and the victory celebration begins before anyone asks hard questions, that's exactly when you need someone willing to dig deeper. This channel brings you the investigations that don't fit neatly into political talking points. Not because the truth is always ugly, but because the truth is rarely as simple as a press release wants you to believe. And look, this matters to you whether you live in California or not, because the policies being tested here, the billions being spent here, the narratives being crafted here, they become the template for every other state. What California does today, your state considers tomorrow. So when California says it cracked the homelessness code, you better believe that claim will be used to justify the same spending, the same programs, and the same political calculations in your backyard. The question is whether the claim holds up. Let me show you what we know, according to preliminary data released by the governor's office. Unsheltered homelessness in California dropped approximately 9% in 2025. The data comes from point-in-time counts, which is a standard method used by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. 30 continuums of care across the state conducted these annual counts. Governor Newsom, who declared homelessness a top priority back in 2019, says the strategies are working. He says the state invested billions and now the results are showing up. And on paper, that story sounds almost reasonable. Billions in results. Out, problem addressed. Progress made, the state points to Homekey, a program that has reportedly created nearly 16,000 homes across 250 projects. They highlight the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program, which has distributed more than $5 billion since 2019. They mention $2.25 billion through Homekey Plus, targeting individuals with mental health challenges, substance use disorders, and veterans. They cite $1 billion in encampment resolution funds that they say helped 23,000 individuals across 120 encampment sites. And then there's Proposition 1, a $6.4 billion behavioral health bond voters approved in 2024, expected to create 6,800 residential treatment beds and 26,700 outpatient treatment slots. Add it all up and you're looking at over $20 billion in spending. Commitments, not a small number, not a quiet effort, a massive intervention. And if you stop there, if you accept the headline and move on, you walk away thinking California figured it out. But here is where the questions begin, because I am not here to tell you the numbers are fake. I'm here to ask you whether the numbers mean what they want you to think they mean. First question, 30 continuums of care reported data, but California has 44 continuums of care. So where are the other 14? What happened in those regions? Did they not conduct counts? Did their numbers not fit the narrative? Were they excluded for methodological reasons or convenient ones? That's not conspiracy thinking, that's basic accountability. When you're claiming the largest improvement in 15 years, you don't get to quietly ignore nearly a third of your reporting regions without explanation. Second question, point-in-time counts are snapshots, one night, one count, conducted differently by different regions using different volunteers with different training. Homeless advocacy groups have raised concerns about point-in-time methodology for years, noting that counts can vary dramatically based on weather, timing, volunteer availability, and how aggressively outreach teams search less visible locations. A 9% drop sounds significant, but what is the margin of error on a count that depends on volunteers walking neighborhoods on a single night trying to identify people who are, by definition, hard to find? Third question. The announcement mentions 23,000 individuals helped across 120 encampment sites through encampment resolution funding. Helped how? Moved where? permanently housed or temporarily sheltered. Are those 23,000 people still housed today, or were they counted as help the moment they accepted a bus ticket or a voucher? Because in policy terms, there's a difference between clearing an encampment and solving homelessness. And if the measure of success is how many encampments you cleared, you can look great on paper while the same individuals cycle through the system endlessly. And here's where I want you to picture something, because this isn't just about numbers. Think about a family in Fresno who supported these ballot measures, who voted for Proposition 1, who believed their tax dollars would make their community safer and more livable. They drive to work every morning past the same intersection where tents have been lined up for 3 years. They read that homelessness dropped 9%. They look at that intersection. The tents are still there. Maybe there are fewer, maybe there are more, but the disconnect between the headline and what they see with their own eyes erodes trust, and once trust is gone, it doesn't come back easily. Think about a business owner in Los Angeles who watched storefronts close on her block because customers stopped coming. She pays taxes, she pays fees, she reads about billions being spent, and she wonders where that money went because her block doesn't look like a success story. It looks exactly the same as it did 2 years ago, maybe worse. She's not opposed to helping people. She just wants to know that the help is actually happening, not just being announced. Think about a formerly homeless veteran in San Diego who got connected to housing through one of these programs. For him, the investment worked. He's off the street. He has stability. His story is real, and it matters. But his story and the story of the frustrated business owner are both true at the same time. And that's what makes this complicated, success and failure existing side by side, depending on where you stand and what you measure. Now let me follow the money, because that's where the real story usually hides. Since 2019, California has committed over $20 billion across various homelessness initiatives. Homekey alone has created nearly 16,000 housing units. That sounds like a lot until you do the math. California's homeless population in the most recent full counts was estimated at over 180,000 people. 16,000 units helps, but it doesn't transform a crisis of that scale. And when you divide the total spending by the number of people housed, the cost per unit in some cases reaches levels that would make private developers blush. Reports have noted that Homekey projects in certain regions came with price tags exceeding $400,000 per door when you factor in acquisition, renovation, and services, not permanently, per unit, per project. And I'm not saying affordable housing should be cheap. It shouldn't be. But when you are spending north of $500,000 to create a single housing unit while families who earn median incomes can't afford to buy homes themselves, you have to ask whether the system is designed to solve problems or sustain programs. The governor's office also mentions that Caltrans has removed more than 19,000 encampments on state right-of-way since 2021 and collected approximately 354,000 cubic yards of debris. That's presented as progress. But encampment removal without permanent housing placement is displacement, not resolution. And displacement doesn't reduce homelessness. It moves it, it scatters it, it makes it harder to count and easier to claim you solved it in one region while it reappears in another. And here's the contradiction that nobody wants to talk about. The state claims success in reducing unsheltered homelessness, but the announcement came with what officials described as federal headwinds, including delayed HUD homeless assistance grants and proposed eliminations of federal programs. So which is it? Is California solving this with state resources or relying on federal support that's now at risk? Because if federal dollars are essential and those dollars are being delayed or eliminated, then the sustainability of whatever progress was made becomes questionable. You can't celebrate a victory in one sentence and blame Washington for headwinds in the next without creating questions about what happens next year and the year after. And that's the thing about declaring victory on homelessness. It's not like building a bridge where you cut a ribbon and it's done. Homelessness is a flow, not a stock. People fall into homelessness every day. People exit homelessness every day. What matters isn't one year's number. What matters is whether the systems you built continue working, whether the investments you made generate compounding returns, whether the progress you claimed holds up when the cameras leave. So here's the accountability question. Will anyone verify these numbers independently? Will anyone track the 14 regions that didn't report data? Will anyone follow up on the 23,000 individuals who were helped through encampment resolution to see where they are 6 months from now? Because a 9% drop means nothing if the count goes back up next year, and a victory lap in 2025 means nothing if 2026 brings a reversal that nobody anticipated because everyone was too busy celebrating to ask hard questions. This isn't partisan. I don't care whether you support the governor or oppose him. What I care about is whether the systems we build actually work and whether the money we spend actually helps. Because when billions of dollars move through government programs and the accountability mechanism is a press release, something is broken, not because politicians are evil, but because systems without scrutiny always drift toward performance over results. If you found this investigation valuable, subscribe to Andrew R. Coleman Wright. Now, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me whether you believe California's homelessness numbers. Share this with your family, your coworkers, your neighbors, because people deserve to know what questions aren't being asked. And here's what I'll be watching. What happens when the full data comes in? What happens when the federal funding picture becomes clearer? What happens when the regions that didn't report finally submit their counts? Because this story isn't over, the headline today says California solved something historic. But history isn't written by press releases. It's written by what actually happens to real people on real streets, and the families still stepping over encampments on their way to work. They're not reading headlines, they're living reality. And reality has a way of catching up to narratives, no matter how many billions you spend trying to stay ahead of it.